Welcome to Masonic Memories, where we chat with senior members of our lodge and reminisce about events, people, and their contributions to our fraternity. Pull up a chair, grab a coffee, and listen to the way things were back in the day as we meet on the plum, act on the level, and part on the square. Today we're meeting with Robert Henry Charles Archibald. I call him Father of the Car Show. Bob joined our lodge in December of 1976. 23 years later, Bob became master of the lodge. That happened to be the 150th anniversary of the founding of United Brethren Lodge. Listen to Bob's plan on how to celebrate that anniversary and the lasting mark it has had on our lodge. Hi Bob, thanks for having me over.
Hi Larry, my pleasure.
Let's talk a little bit about Masonry. And when I see you, I think of Christmas baskets and fruit baskets that you used to deliver. Can you tell me how that got started?
Yes, well, shortly after I became a Mason, when we moved here in 1972, my first friend that I acquired was Lee T. Whittemore, we lived in the same complex on Briarwood in Marlborough. And so he became my very first friend here. And then I found out he was a Freemason. He was a Mason. And I said, so I started asking him questions because I only belonged to my union at the time, my elevator union. So I wanted to know all about it. So he used to tell me. And I said to him, so what do I have to do to join the lodge? He says, well, you just asked me. He says, I'll take care of the rest. I said, okay, so I don't need to worry. No, he says, you don't have to worry about anything. He says, I'll take care of everything. But I didn't know at the time he was going through marriage problems and stuff. So he had so much else on his mind. So I was the last person on his mind. So I had to ask him a couple of times, hey, Lee, what's happening with my application? When am I going to make up? Oh, yeah. He says, I got to do it. So one night, shortly after I bought this house, and we still stayed in friends. He was living in Northborough. So I was out one night, we're visiting him, even though I didn't know at the time that he was having problems. And I said to him, so I'm going to ask you again, Lee, where's my application? He says, wait a minute. He got on this phone and he dialed up Leo Barsamian. He said, Leo, I don't care what you have to do. Get your briefcase and get out to my house now, or somebody's going to kill me here. All right. And he came out, and I filled out the application, I gave him the money and everything, and that was how I got into Masonry. So eventually, in 1976, I was raised. So Lee and I still stayed very good friends. And of course, the end was I was up visiting family in Montreal, and when I got back, I got a call from Dick Johnson, and he said, our friend Lee T. Whittemore passed away on the weekend that I was gone. So it was pretty tough to take because he was just a great guy. And I used to love him because when he became master of the lodge, he'd start every lodge meeting with a joke. And that was just his way. So he'd stand up there, he'd tell a joke, everybody have a laugh. He says, all right, now let's get down to business. And he'd open the lodge and stuff. Just a great way. So I always said, if I ever get to that point where I become the master of the lodge, which I wasn't even thinking about it, that's what I would do something like that because it would help me calm the nerves and stuff and then get going.
He died quite suddenly.
Very suddenly.
And there was a little controversy with his death.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
And still have no answers. What did he die from?
Exactly.
Nobody knows.
Shall we leave it at that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it wouldn't do any good. It wouldn't bring him back. But he was a fantastic Mason and a terrific master of the lodge.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
And my story with him, he was master when I joined, and we were putting some shelves up in one of the rooms upstairs.
Yeah.
And we just had a great time one Saturday morning putting up shelves. And Walter DeMorgan was trying to supervise us.
Yeah.
And Lee and him were going back and forth, and Lee had a lot of jokes, and it was a lot of fun.
That's the way he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just died too soon.
He did.
But yeah, there is controversy about what happened, you know, because nobody can find out what it was. But yeah. So so then I sat on the sidelines for 30 some odd years because I had a problem with public speaking. It just was not my thing. So, but I always dreamed that it would be nice to become master of lodge, go through the chairs, but it wasn't enough to get me to make the move. And then one day, I asked somebody about what do you do for the old timers and stuff. So I started the fruit baskets. I'd get names from the secretary of the lodge, and guys would come and tell me, well, you know, so and so he's sick, he's got this problem or that problem, he can't come to lodge. Well, his name went on the list. So I said, I was just the sad part about the whole thing is that you're seeing all these old timers, and unfortunately they weren't with us. You know, some of were gone before the next year we went out and stuff. So that's the sad part. But I think just the doorbell, ringing their doorbells and having these old timers come to the door and see 6, 8, 7, 10, maybe more brothers from the lodge say, and one of them would be holding the fruit basket and say, yeah, are you up for a visit? And of course, come in. So, and it was great for them, of course. So that's the good part about it. And then sometime later, I started the sending members birthday cards so I had Masonic birthday cards made up, and they gave me a list of all the birthdays of all the members at the time, and it worked good for a while. And then unfortunately, I was getting more back sometimes than I wanted, and with notes and even phone calls from family members stating that, sorry, we received a card for my dad, but he passed away 4 years ago. So that was kind of frustrating to get a more up-to-date list. And I said, then I started to do the lodge notices. And then I just turned the birthday cards over to the master of the lodge at the time and said, here, find somebody else that has the time to do that. So I've been doing now the lodge notices for, 30 years maybe.
Do you have any specific stories of the Christmas baskets that stand out in particular?
Well, one that comes to mind, he was a brother, but he wasn't a member of our lodge, and he lived down on the Hemingway.
New Horizons?
New Horizons, he lived there. And I can't even remember his name right now, but he was in a couple of movies, and with Happy Days. He was in that. He made a few appearances in the Happy Days, which is on every week and stuff. So that was kind of a surprise, you know.
He also did commercials. I can't remember his name, but he was in a Fruit of Loom commercial. He was like the grapes or something, or the banana.
And he ended up living here in Marlborough and stuff. So yeah, I can't remember his name, but that was a big surprise. And you know that. So we talked about, of course, what he did, and there was other surprises too. I mean. Yes, and Larry, there's another highlight from my fruit basket days, another person that we used to keep to the very end. And you might know him, he was your Uncle Bob. And the guys would all say the same thing. Okay, well, let's leave Bob till the end. And then we would get out there and go in through the garage door. And of course, we'd always remark about, how did they ever get that boat into the basement? And of course, we found out later that you're the one that put the boat in the basement. How you ever did it, we never knew. But that was another one that was purposely left to the end, because once we got in there, talking to Bob, we were in there for an hour or 2 hours just talking. So it was a great time, and another great memory I have, and I'm sure other guys have as well. So. Sometimes you couldn't get any, they wouldn't be home. They'd be out or wherever. So we'd go back the next day, or, you know, and deliver them then. But it was a great thing, just showing up at their houses and stuff. I wouldn't call and let them know we're coming. So it was was a big surprise, and they enjoyed it. So
When we think of Bob or mention your name, the car show comes to mind. You're the father of the car show. How did that come about?
well, in in 2008, Dick Johnson called a meeting down in the banquet hall, and he had a big board, you know, and he had it all set up. And there was quite a few members that showed up for it. And the whole idea was for all different brothers to come up with ideas, what we could do to celebrate the lodge's 150th anniversary of being in Marlborough. And so everybody's given, there was other ideas and stuff. And myself having an antique car, I said, I stood up and I said to Dick Johnson, I said, well, how about a car show? That attracts a lot of people. He thought about it for a second. He says, you're absolutely right. And I'm putting you in charge of that. And that's how I ended up with it, because he put me in charge of it. It's one of those things, you know, you really didn't volunteer, but anyway, you got picked for it. And I'd never done anything, and I'm not the best organized person either. So I had a great committee all the way along. I had all good guys and guys that I could go to, and it ended up that Marlborough would only give me half of Main Street, from the Lodge to Florence Street. So I got very friendly with Suzanne Lieber. I can't say enough about her because she was an absolute sweetheart. Anyway, so she come up to me at the car show. She said, I really love to see this, you know, all these old cars and stuff, and look at the people. But she says, my only negative thing is, why did you stop at Florence Street? Why didn't you keep going? I said, well, I would have, but this is all the police would give me. She said, well, do you plan on doing another one next year? Well, after seeing how this one made out, I said, absolutely. She says, you have to come and see me, because I want you to get me involved in this. And she says, I'll make you a promise right now. You'll have the complete Main Street from light to light. And like, I can't say enough about her, because so the day of the second car show, she showed up after having double mastectomy surgery. She was there for me, that lady. I can't say enough about Suzanne. So, and every year it got bigger and bigger, more brothers, and then we got together with a car show, and so they were helping us too, and because I knew I was working with one of the guys in there. So anyway, but it lasted for a couple of years, and then they wanted to go their way, a different way and stuff. So for the last, I don't know, 5 years, I think we've been just strictly United Brethren Lodge.
And that was an auto club.
Yes, it was. Yeah, yeah. So now it's just nothing is a problem. I mean, there's so many guys. We have meetings when it gets closer to the date of the car show, we're meeting once a week. So, and it's just, everybody's got good ideas, and they show up on car show day. And some, they can't do the night meetings, but they show up on the day of the car show, and I give them a shirt, and they say, what do you want me to do? And they're there to help and stuff. So it's a very successful show. And the city hall has told me that she says, I don't know how you're going to feel about this. You should feel good, but she says, I'm telling you that your car show is bigger now than the Labor Day parade in Marlborough, and that's the biggest parade in the state. So we did something right, and now if I don't pull a permit for the streets soon enough, I get a phone call. Are we doing a car show this year? Absolutely. Then I got to go in. And then, of course, the list of sponsors that they want to get in, they want, to get in the book and stuff, and it's just a win-win situation. And of course, and it's all United Brethren Lodge now, so.
Do you know how much money you've made in the years that you've been doing that?
Well, I can tell you, some guys, they keep track of that, and I don't, but I believe now, since we've done 14 or 15 shows, and we've gone over just under $140,000 we've given to charity, and that charity is like Shriners Hospital, Springfield, Boston, all veterans, all children things, St. Jude, just Wounded Warriors, home base for veterans, and everything is all children and veterans. So, and of course the food bank in Marlboro. That's another one, a big one we give to. And
Congratulations, Bob.
well, thank you very much. But it's a lot of fun.
You don't often see Bob without Alan. How did you get Alan involved in the lodge?
Well, I helped him to get down here. Well, I became a citizen, and I said I'm sponsoring my brother and his family. So, and then of course they latched on to this other some sort of a program that the U.S. had. I guess they had shortchanged some countries in their the amount of things that they put out to get people in, and so they had a big rush thing, and I had to mail applications to Washington for my brother, and it was a first come first served basis, and so I sent 5 or 6 a day for a whole week, and he was picked. Him and his wife and kids were all picked. So that's how I got him down here. And as soon as he got down here, as soon as he found out that I was a Mason and stuff, he says, I want to do that too. So I said, oh, okay. So that he got in, and yeah, so I mean, he enjoys it too. It's a win-win situation, but that's how I got him involved.
So you were raised in December of 1976.
Yeah.
What's different now than back in those days?
Well, the lodge wasn't here; it burned down. So I was raised in where you used to work, right?
Right.
Top floor, Avidia Bank.
In
right?
Doric Lodge.
Yeah, that's where I was raised.
Can you describe that building, what it was like?
Well, it was beautiful up in the lodge room, and then eventually, I guess they had Doric Lodge had to get out and stuff, and yeah, they used the space for something else and stuff, so there was no more lodge. Well, they moved in with us, with UB, and then shortly after that, they were gone. But no, it was a great old building. I mean, all new to me. I mean, but and then I think Lee Whittemore was the first master of the new lodge, new building. I think he was.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And I wish I had been a little later and had him raise me, there. But yeah, it was good. I've always enjoyed it, And then, of course, it was like 30 some odd years, 33, 34 years that I sat on the sidelines, never missed a meeting. I enjoyed every meeting. And so what I did was, I was at a meeting one night, there was a few empty chairs. I had no intentions of going on because of my, my public speaking problem. Yeah, so anyway, Doug Spillett was the master at the time, and it bothered me to see a couple of empty chairs that no officer sitting in. So I said to him, do you have any objections if I buy a tux and just sit in any chair just to make it look like it's occupied? And he said, well, why would I have any objections to that? He said, of course. So I did it with no intentions of going on, but it's one of those things. I sat there for a whole year, and junior steward or whatever it was, right? And this is not bad. No speaking parts though, so I felt pretty good. And then Walter said to me, he said, no, you got to go into the next seat, and I'm going to take this seat. So I said, all right. So now I moved up a seat in the following year, and that was the start of it for me. And then, of course, the way they do it, little speaking parts to start with, and then they get a little more, and that's what worked out for me. So eventually, I said, yeah, I'm gonna keep at it, and I did. And sometimes I have to look at the lodge notes and say, did I really do it? And see my name on the back. It's yeah, I did it. And then I used to do what Lee did. So what I did was that my supplier for all the jackets and hats that I was selling at the lodge, they sent me paperwork and books all about things like that, that I could use. And so I had these things, and before I'd open the lodge, I'd walk out, complete with butterflies, and I'd walk out and I'd read some poetry, or I'd read a Masonic story, or whatever it was, and then the butterflies are gone, and I opened the lodge, and that's really how I I did it. And, so sometimes I'm very surprised that I did it because I swore for years I would never, but I'm glad I did. That's how I became master of the lodge.
I have a picture of you sitting on the sidelines with a group of brothers, one of them being Perry O'Leary.
Yeah.
Can you tell me something about him?
Well, he got sick, and he ended up in a nursing home. So we didn't see him at the meetings. And so I believe it was, I think it was his birthday. It's quite a while ago, and I can't remember. And so the word was out that we're going to go over and pick him up. He lived in Worcester, in a nursing home in Worcester. I think that's where it was. Maybe just outside Worcester. So we went and we picked him up, and there was other members of our lodge that were all members of his church, First Church, I believe. And so we all surprised him and showed up and I can't remember the name of the lodge for the life of me. It was out in Rutland or somewhere. There was a lodge that he was going to because he lived closer to it, And so we surprised him, and that's the picture of all of us that showed up and sat with him, and of course sang happy birthday. And now, unfortunately, he's passed on. So
when he was an active member, he was often the first gate.
The first gate, yeah.
And
he had his own way of saying it.
He certainly did. What did he say?
He said, and 6 feet perpendicular. So it was always a great thing to look forward to when he'd be doing it. And he did mine, of course, when I joined.
Do you have anybody else in lodge that you would like to remember or talk about, or you have fond memories of?
Fond memories? Dick Temple, who was the secretary when I joined. I always used to enjoy going into his office, as I did with a lot of brothers. And when I was working, if I was in the area, stop in and just talk to him. He was a great one. Dick Jacobs was quite a worker in our lodge, and with he used to put on every year that
health fair.
Health fair, yeah, and enjoyed talking to him. Unfortunately, there's so many, and one that really is Eddie Craig was a real favorite of mine. And then there was another one, George. Oh God, can't think of his last name. But his grandfather was a runaway slave.
George Walker.
George Walker. So when I used to do the baskets, we'd always leave George till the end, because once we got in there, we were there for a while, because we get George talking about history and all the way it used to be for a black man and stuff, just so interesting. And now, how's this? It hasn't happened for a while because my brother doesn't have his hot dog truck anymore. But I used to meet George Walker's great-grandson at Allen's hot dog truck. He has a construction business in Marlboro. And this was the biggest kick I got, because he'd say to me whenever I meet him, we're having a hot dog, and we're talking, and he says to me, Bob, he says, can you tell me any more stories about my great-grandfather? And that, to me, was just absolutely priceless. I said, and I'd say, well, I'll tell you this and I'll tell you that. And he got the biggest kick out of hearing about his great-grandfather, who he never met. And I haven't seen him for a while, but he always tells me, I'm going to join the lodge. But he hasn't done it yet, but hopefully someday.
And George Walker worked on the railroad. I think he was a steward, maybe, or a conductor on the railroad. A porter. Yeah. On the railroad, and traveled all over the East Coast.
Yeah, and was another black man was Charlie Brown. These two were just the greatest guys to have at the meetings and stuff, and to be with.
Charlie Brown worked in finance, and when I became treasurer, he came up to me and he said, if there are any supplies you need, accounting paper, any pencils, anything you need, accounting supplies, he goes, come to me and I'll get them for you.
Yeah, those two great guys, they really were. And Eddie Craig, just the stories from Eddie Craig too, But unfortunately, that's, they're here and then they're gone. So, but yeah, yeah, there's been times like working before I got in line, and I used to work installing a lot of elevators up in Maine and northern New Hampshire, and especially Maine. A lot of masons up in Maine, and I used to always meet them on construction sites, and it was always a great thing to have that acquaintance with other brothers up there and stuff.
Do you have any recommendations for any new brothers?
Well, I just brought in Al Baldwin, and he's unbelievable, this guy. But yeah, I know we do pretty well at our lodge. I mean, there's a lot of interest. I think I don't know for sure if any from the car show has happened, but they used to have an open house the same day as the car show and bring people through. So I thought that was a good idea at the time. It's not done all the time, but I don't know. I think it's good. But
Bob, you and I are running off to go to lodge tonight.
We are.
It's a first degree, a turkey dinner.
Yeah.
Before we run off, is there any last things you want to say or comment on?
Sadly, when I became a Mason, it was then that I found out that I had 2 uncles that were Masons but never knew it. And kind of favorite uncles up in Canada. In fact, and then I found out when I became a Shriner that my grandmother's brother was a past potentate of the shrine up at Montreal. But unfortunately, they're all gone. So yeah, that would have been of great interest for me if they were still around. But no, I'm pretty happy with the choices I made. I really am. And then of course, my brother and stuff. And yeah, very enjoyable. I'm looking forward to car show number 15. And yeah.
Okay. Bob, thanks for having me over. And if you think of anything
pleasure.
else, we'll do it again.
Absolutely. I have the time.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
I hope you enjoyed this discussion. There will be more chats with senior members of our lodge. We will reminisce about colorful characters, the 1975 fire, past activities. You may learn where our lodge furniture came from, who made our altar, and hear about the infamous pink degree.